Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 3rd of April, and the juggernaut continues. Not out of line with exactly what we were seeing with the rising gold here and the increase in the shakeout histogram, and more clearly even in our DOC with the rising of green, red, short-term, mid-term, long-term buyers all getting into the act, leading up to the fresh new inflows of money. And we're starting to see a little bit of the short-term buyers fade off here, just a fraction as we break into, even new higher range than we've been recently. So everything's still intact for this movement. The fact that you have that deep a move of cyan below red and not even making an attempt to move just shows you how much strength is in that. And we've seen that throughout the NASDAQ. So no change in any of those. We're getting a little bit of return back after we get the fill of the euro. We're right down to what we expected for the dip below the red line. Isn't that wonderful how that works out? However, it did dip back below the red line here, so any pop here is probably not going to survive much. Gold now basing also at that same, just a little bit higher. It's probably got a little bit more to work through. It came pretty close to what I would say from my standpoint, which is usually about 80% of the low target being reached, and it's more than adequate for that, but still in a decayed DOC reading. Nothing filling strength right there. Not a whole lot happened the other day. It was pretty tight range in general. Fairly clean with the dips that we had that produced X buy signals, and then even in the lead up here to the pre-market from that short DOC spread that developed right about here, we ended up with that crossover and then the steel boom, and then it just took off right in that post-market when the low liquidity just lets them have free reign. And we're popping. We've now reached another algo low here up at the 2880. So that will be the next inflection point. We're getting up there. Might see a little bit of fill back because a lot of this was positive extreme. Something we didn't see throughout much of the other day or even the start of the week, because a lot of that move really didn't have positive extreme. So kind of a short report in the sense that we're just doing exactly what the daily broader picture had in store for us. If we look at the 50K that it bought, the original dip here, then we had the little retest, and so it bought it again, and it's just been nothing but straight up from that one as well. So just keep playing with what we've got, which is fairly straightforward and clean. So all good stuff, and right in line with what the indicators have been giving us. So just continue to play with what we've got at this particular point, and we have our inflection points. I think if we do break that 2380, you're likely to come back to the 70. So I think that gives a fairly decent range to be able to play with within normal context. So that was what I would be looking for from an extreme move, getting all the way back down to filling this positive extreme. You'd have to see a failure of support right around that 2870 range, which would likely show itself with a strong DOC spread that happened as well, and continues to show cyan well above red at that particular point. So we'll look for that if it happens at this particular point. But I think there really isn't anything substantive that's on the horizon here, unless there's a sudden news thing or shock that will affect overall direction. But for now, there just isn't any short participation, and as long as that's the case, you get the slow ebb forward. And nothing. In fact, we had even an interesting one too on Bitcoin. We haven't talked about it in a while, but it's just been in a slow buy from like, oh geez, we had the MBIs back here and the GAMs, and then the cyan below red, and pretty much that's been with steel down below throughout this entire move, and that's a pretty decent jump. All of a sudden, so there's some activity on that side of it as well. As always, though, if something unique happens, I will certainly put it up. But for now, trade well, and we'll talk again later.